Agyanam timirandasya Jnananjanasalakaya Chaksurunmilitam yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Kudalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namah. Yam Prabrajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Vaipayano Virahakataruvajuhava Putriti Tanmayataya Taravo Banido Tam Sarvabhutamidayam Munimanatosmi Bhaktya Vinay Aparadalakshay Chaktasya Kamari Tarangamarye Kripamayi Tvam Sharanam Prapadyam Vrinde Namaste Sharanarvindam Tavoivasmi Najivami Kambina Iti Vidyaya Radhe Tam Nayamam Sharananti. First, I offer my unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet of my most worshipful, initiating spiritual master, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pada Stotra Sat Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, and the same unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet of my most worshipful, instructing spiritual master, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pada Astotra Sat Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj, to all of our Guru Varga and all the assembled devotees and guests. May I ask you both to move that way so I can see you. Could you come here? Yeah. That way I don't have to be like a, you know what I mean? Okay, yeah, so that I don't have to be like a pendulum to see you all. Okay, so we're continuing our reading of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're beginning with the verses that we started yesterday in glorifying the Bhagavatam, the importance of what reading and hearing it does. So, Brian, I'm going to read the Sanskrit mantras and then the English. Dharma prochitavaita, and everybody, of course, joining. Dharma prochitavaita kaitavo traparamo nirmatsaranam satam Vedyam Vastuvamatra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayonam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Parayarishvara Sadhyo Vidyavarujite Chakutibi Shubhis Dakshana. Completely rejecting all material activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavad Purana, or Srimad Bhagavatam, propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are pure at heart. The highest truth is reality, distinguished from the illusion for the welfare of all. And such truth uproots threefold miseries. I'll take a break just to explain how truth can uproot miseries and how ignorance is the cause of miseries. Srila Prabhupada gave the example that one man in Calcutta. He ate too many pakoras one day, cooked in oil, and he got cholera and died. So he was in ignorance of the effects of eating all those savories, and then he died. So if he knew what would happen, then he wouldn't have done it. So truth or knowledge uproots miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any of the scriptures? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of the Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord becomes imprisoned in his heart, established in his heart. But we said imprisoned because once that happens, that he can never come out. The devotee has captured him by his love. Nigamakalpataror galitam palam Shukamakaramrita javasamyutam Nivita bhagavatam rasamalayam Mohora hora sikha bhuvi bhavuka. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of all Vedic knowledge and Vedic literature that has emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, though its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. See, when a parrot bites into a mango, the mango becomes more sweet. So, Sukha was the parrot of Radharani. Then he came here to this material world in the form of man. So if he speaks it, this Bhagavatam, because he spoke it, it became even more tasteful. Tutu vacha yang pravajantam anupetam apeta krityam vaipayano viraka taruvajuhava putreti tanmayataya taravo banedas tang sarva bhuta hridayam munimanatosmi. Srila Sutta Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the great sage Sukadeva Goswami, who can enter into the hearts of all. When he went away to take the renounced order of life, sannyas, leaving aside home without undergoing the sacred thread ceremony, his father Vyasadeva cried out, 'Oh, my son!' But indeed, only the trees echoed in response to the aggrieved father. Yam swanubhavamakila shutisaramekam adyatmadipam titirsatam pramodam tam saranam karunaya paparanakuyam tam vyasasam payami gurum maninam. Hi, Bhimamini, can you make the loudspeaker louder? Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, Sukha, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who, out of his causeless mercy, causeless compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest region of material existence, he spoke this Srimad Bhagavatam, the supplement to the Vedas, the cream of all Vedic knowledge, after first personally assimilating it by his experience. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam daivam saraswatim vyasam tato jayanti rayet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest. Why? Because it propounds the highest truth. which is the reality distinguished from the illusion of the welfare of all, and such truth uproots the threefold miseries. So I offer my obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, Narayan Rishi, to Goddess Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Vyasadeva, the author. Srinvatam Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Vedanta Sto Yavadrani, Vidunoti Suvrtsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of a truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed an urge to hear his messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Krishna Swadharma Bhagavate Dharma Jnana Saha Alonasta Drishamesha Purana Kovinodita. This Bhagavad Purana, or Srimad Bhagavatam, is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna for his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of the ignorance of this age of Kali, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, shall get light from this Srimad Bhagavatam. Anarto pashamam shakshat bhakti yogam bhoksaje lokasya janata vidvams chakre satvata samvitam. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him. Like right now, I think I'm really tired. But it's all my illusion. I'm not really tired. It's all superfluous to me. Because I'm in ignorance, I think can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this. And therefore, the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the Supreme Truth. And one more. Namam Karuna Aham Ramalavarnam Sudhitavataram Apar Samsara Swarupa. I bow down to the Lord, the ocean of mercy, whose color is like that of a tamal tree, and who appears in this world for the welfare of all. I worship him as the bridge for crossing the unfathomable ocean of material existence. The Srimad Bhagavatam has appeared as his very self. So this book that we've been reading is non-different from the absolute truth, personality of God himself. A brief overview. You don't want to put it on the floor though, because it's Krishna. And then people have stepped there. So the sages of Naimisharanya gathered together to perform 1,000-year sacrifice for the welfare of all at the beginning of the age of Kali, 5,000 years ago. And they thought it wise to inquire from the great sage Sutta Goswami about the world's welfare, about the essence of all revealed scriptures. And Sutta Goswami is answering their questions one by one. In the second chapter, he talked about devotional service and the Bhagavatam and how that's the only means for liberation. Third chapter, the incarnations of Krishna. The fourth chapter, how the Bhagavatam began by the incarnation of Godhead Vyasadeva in trance at the beginning of this horrible age of Kali, or quarrel and hypocrisy, meditating on how this age is going to be very disastrous. In this age, men have but short lives, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, was disturbed. So he manifested the one transcendental Vedic knowledge into various parts so they would be more easily understandable, and those parts into other parts so that all different classes of persons would get light. But he was still not happy, didn't know why. So at that moment, his spiritual master came, Narada Muni, and explained that it was because he has not written vividly the personal descriptions of the original Godhead Krishna. And so throughout the fourth chapter, Narada is convincing him to meditate in trance and compile this book, Srimad Bhagavatam. Then in the next chapter, the fifth chapter, Narada is telling about his own life and how he himself became perfect. And that continues throughout the sixth chapter. Then Narada leaves, and we'll find out today in the seventh chapter what Vyasadeva does and how he applied his guru's instructions. I promised yesterday that we were going to talk about one particular verse from this sixth chapter, where Narada is explaining how he got his spiritual body, how he left his material body, Panchabhautik, material body made of the 5 elements, and simultaneously, just like lightning and thunder, was it? Happened simultaneously. Well, that would be obvious. Let's see. So he left him. I think it's 28. I think it is. Yeah, 28, 628. He's speaking to Vyasadeva. He's going to be compiling this book. O Brahmana Vyasadeva, in the course of time, I, who was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna, and therefore had no material attachments, being completely free from material taints, met with death as lightning and illumination. You're absolutely right. It occurs simultaneously, doesn't it? Lightning doesn't come and then illumination comes. It's simultaneous. All right, but that was I read the 27th by mistake. Now I'm going to read the translation to the 28th. Having been awarded a transcendental body befitting the associate of the Lord, I quit the body made of the 5 material elements, and thus all acquired fruitive results of work stopped. So yesterday I said I was going to read from Gurudev's lecture in this book, Swarupa Vijiva, or the original nature of the spirit soul. And this is in chapter 5. He's discussing this verse to show that Narada said, I was awarded a spiritual body. It was manifest. It was always already there, but it needed to manifest. Ayujamane, the first word of the verse. What is awarded? What two things mixed? Because Srila Jiva Goswami, who is in the line, a very great Acharya in the line of our disciplic lineage, he wrote a prose verse in his Priti Sandarbha, and it was so poetic. It was a prose verse, but it was so poetic and kind of symbolic, which is that in Vaikuntha, the spiritual planets, there are unlimited spiritual forms, which are all Jyotir Amsabhuta, forms which have emanated from the effulgence of the form of the Lord. When a devotee becomes liberated, then the Lord makes that soul one with one of those unlimited forms. So it sounds like there are like parked cars of spiritual bodies in the spiritual world. And then when a soul who's practicing bhakti here in this world becomes perfect, then he, that living soul, joins with the parked car, and the parked car starts moving. Or the spiritual body, which emanates from the effulgence of the form of the Lord, is inert right now. It's just hanging out there like a coat in the closet. And then when the soul becomes perfect, no, you're not supposed to understand it. It doesn't make sense. Then he puts on the coat and everything starts moving in the coat. So Srila Gurudev is explaining that it's very difficult to understand this verse of Srila Jiva Goswami without hearing the real explanation from his the disciplic acharyas, disciplic gurus in his line who are self-realized and who are closer to us in years, meaning he was 500 years ago, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared 150 or so years ago, and then Srila Gurudev appeared 100 years ago. So being closer to us, they help us understand an acharya who we couldn't understand. So, all of our Goswamis have written in this way that in the Jiva's Swarup, or his constitutional position, everything is transcendental and eternal. Even now we have a eternal spiritual form, but it's in the form of a potency, like a seed. Everything is in the seed. The whole tree is in the seed, right? Particular bhav or mood of serving Krishna in the Jiva's perfectional form is available in that seed in the form of a potency. So how do we reconcile Jiva Goswami's statements, like the code in the car, with what all of our other teachers are teaching? Which seems to be that the jiva is not able to do any kind of service until neither is the spiritual form, until they join when the jiva gets perfect. So talking about joining or mixing. So Gurudev says, in this, a question arises. In that world, spiritual world, the jiva's swarup or form, spiritual body, is being saved for him while he is still here doing sadhana or spiritual practices. The swarup which is here and the swarup which is of the associate, which is there, will be different. The Goswamis are saying that the soul's constitutional spiritual form, in it, everything is present. So how can we reconcile Jiva Goswami's statement with what our other Goswamis are saying? Everybody understand the question? What don't you understand? Our spiritual body is in the seed, like a tree is in the seed of the tree. So our whole spiritual body, what we look like, what we wear, what our services are, how old we are eternally in the spiritual world, that's already there in the seed form in our heart. So by the process of bhakti or devotional service and chanting Hare Krishna, the seed gradually sprouts and grows, but the tree is already there. There's two time factors. There's an eternal time factor where it's already there because it's an eternal form. So eternal form can't start at some point. And then there's linear time, which we're in now, today, tomorrow, yesterday, a million years ago, a million years in the future. And so now we're in linear time, and we're trying to develop or manifest our spiritual form, which is there in our constitutional, perfectional state. It's not something it's not like ABC. It's all PhD. But gradually, by hearing, it becomes clear. Spiritual world, it is spiritual, and it is constituted of spiritual energy, but we have not experienced it ever. Even though it's the real us, we didn't come from there and fall down. Neither is it going on there right now, even though it's eternal, because we haven't realized it. But actually, a pure devotee sees that it's going on, amazingly enough, because the pure devotee, can look at any seed and know everything about the tree that's potentially in the seed. So he knows what we look like, what we're going to look like, and everything just by looking at the seed of our spiritual form. I'll read more, maybe a little bit more clear. There's no difference. It's just his wording that we can't understand. So Gurudev is going to explain his wording. That's why you need a more recent spiritual master, guru, teacher, who self-realized to help understand the previous ones. What is awarded? What two things mix? The Lord's mercy and Guru's mercy is one thing that is awarded. Merely performing activities of devotion will not do. So we need our activities to mix with the mercy. By my own activities, I can't reach the spiritual world. I have to do the activity, otherwise the mercy won't come. But just the activities alone won't make that spiritual form come. I need the mercy to actually make it happen. The mercy won't come if they don't see any endeavor. On one side is Guru's and Krishna's mercy. And what's the other one? Our endeavor. When these two things meet, the hard work and the Guru's mercy, then one is quote unquote awarded a body of associate, a spiritual body that serves Krishna. Does that make a little bit of sense so far? It's new. Now this point must be presented here. Now he's going to explain why it's so hard to understand. Material language is incompetent, unable to comprehend and express spiritual matters. It fails in that. There will always be some fault. Some kind of fault will be there, even in, not that Jiva Goswami has a fault, but the language material language can't touch spirit. Even in Krishna, God speaking Bhagavad Gita, there's a disconnect between us understanding it and the reality that's being spoken by you in Bhagavad Gita. When they speak, those who are from spiritual world will understand. But conditioned souls, us, who have four defects, that is, make mistakes, we cheat, we're subject to illusion. And we're doing a play, a drama. What day? There's going to be a 4-day festival at the end, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th. Sometimes here, sometimes in another place. I think you put down your name. I saw it the other night. And so we'll send you the information. So on one of those nights, we're going to do drama about all the features of this Asian quarrel and hypocrisy, like anger, lust, greed. And so all the devotees play different parts. And she is illusion. So, yeah, he's explaining how why it's different. So when they speak, those who are from the spiritual world, the liberated souls, they can understand. Those of us who have these four disqualifications, cheating, imperfect senses, subject to illusion, and making mistakes, will not be able to comprehend. There will be some defect in the understanding. Even when you say the word tatastha or marginal, which is a Sanskrit word, like we are marginal energy, we're in between the spiritual and material worlds. And we can go either way, depending on our consciousness. But even there, we don't really understand what we're saying, because we don't have realization. We say Krishna performed his pastimes 5,000 years ago, past tense. But does that mean they're not still going on? They are still going on. The language is always defective. Only by devotional practices or sadhana is one able to understand and experience any spiritual topic. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said in Jaiva Dharma, perform sadhana bhajan. Don't just question without performing them. And by this you will receive the Lord's mercy and realization will come. So the Swarup, our spiritual form, spiritual nature is now latent, dormant. It is spiritual because it is of the spiritual world. It belongs there, it's made of spirit, but it's latent. So when Jiva Goswami says there are inert spiritual bodies waiting, it just means that our spiritual body is dormant in our hearts, in the seed form, the potency. So it's covered in this world. Similarly, our form as an associate is also present in our constitutional position of perfectional spiritual position. Even in the conditioned stages, as mentioned, Jaiva Dharma talks about 2 time factors. The eternal one, which is full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity, of the fresh and new, and there's linear time. So the Siddha Swarup, or eternal form, is still there, but in a hidden form. Then again, he's saying that word from the verse. Prayujamani. Here, the mercy of the Lord, along with the devotional practices of the soul, combine. When they both combine, the transcendental body, in other words, the Siddha Swarup, or Siddha Deha, is manifest or quote-unquote awarded and realized, not before. So our eternal spiritual body is thus realized and illuminated, and thereafter understood at that time. Now, it cannot be understood now. We can say words, we can explain, but there's no real understanding until there's realization. Like I can explain to you an ice cream cone or a chocolate chip mint ice cream cone. But if you haven't tasted it, I could go on explaining it, and I'm realizing I can go on explaining it, but if you haven't tasted it, you'll never get it. Will you? No. Have you ever tasted it? Then you got it. I get it. Wouldn't be living, we'd be dead. Okay, so this occurs at the stage of Bhava Bhakti, up to the high stage of Bhakti, or Bhav, or spiritual emotions. And this is what is known as Prayujamani, meaning Nitya Siddhas Svibhavasa Prakutam Purisa Sagyutam. The spiritual form or Siddhadeha is here in this world, but it is of that world. In other words, it's made of that, but it just hasn't manifested yet. It's dormant now in us. There's no question of separately joining the soul with the spiritual body that's waiting there. There's only one spiritual body, and it's dormant now in us, although it's of that place. So Prayujamani means that when mercy and sadhana or devotional practices mix, then realization and illumination occur. Realization and illumination are bestowed, so you could say awarded, upon that jiva. Mercy. Krishna's and Guru's mercy. We said, try to understand one thing. We have one spiritual form, Siddhadeha. Since when? From the moment we were quote unquote created. So even if you say we're created, you don't even understand that because we're not created, we're eternal. And God created us, but we're not created. Like you could say the sunlight is created by the sun. There's never a time that there was no sunlight. If the sun was there, the sunlight was there. So right from the moment we were created, that quote unquote time is beyond time. Onward. This has nothing to do with material time. There is one perfected spiritual body of the jiva in which you perform service to the Lord, or in which you can serve the Lord in the future. This perfected form and the jiva are not separate. There's a difference, though, between our soul and the material body. That's a difference. Not between us, our soul now, which is in seedling form, and our constitutional perfected spiritual form. Okay, so we realize this when we get mercy and by continual performance of devotional practice. Okay. Are there any questions about this particular thing? That is correct. Because it's motivated to. So now, in chapter 7, if you want, we have this little Jiva here, you could read it in different parts of it and explain all different angles in all different chapters. So Narada is telling about his life, and then, as I mentioned, how he got his spiritual body, and then he leaves. That's the end of the chapter. Now we're coming to chapter 7. Okay. Shonaka Uvacha. Here we are again with Shonaka, who is the leader of the 88,000 sages who are inquiring about the world's welfare from Sutta Goswami. Sutta Goswami just related about Narada, yes. Now, Shonaka Uvacha, Nirvite Narade Sutta, Bhagavan Bharayana, Suttavam Naradik Pretam, Tatakyam Makaro Vibhu. Great and transcendently powerful Vyasdev heard everything from Narada Muni. So after Narada's departure, what did Vyasdev do? Sutta Uvacha, so now Sutta Goswami is answering. Brahmanajam Sarasvatyam Ashrama Pashmedite Samya Prasa Iti Prokta Vishina Satravardhana. Sutta Goswami said, on the western bank of the river Saraswati, which is intimately related with the Vedas, there is a cottage for meditation at some prasa, which enlivens the transcendental activities of the sages. Tasmin sva ashrame vyaso padaro samdhavandite asino upachishya pranidam swayam. In that place, Sri Vyasdev, in his own ashram, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samya. This one's coming up, very, very important. What did he see when he sat down to meditate? Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samyak Male Apashat Purisham Purnam Mayam Chaitanya Pashvayam. Thus, he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service. He linked his mind with devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, without a tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his material energy, which was under full control. We think we can be under controlling a situation, but really all situations are controlled by the Lord. No, he's not engaging with that kind of cleaning the ashram. He's engaging his mind in the personality of Godhead and his pastimes. Huh? Yeah. I mean, not that cleaning the ashram is not devotional service, but it's external, not internal. Yeah, so, did I really check this? Yeah. So when he went into trance, he was meditating on the Lord, and he saw the Lord with his shadow, the material energy. Real shadow, but the Lord's shadow is all material energy. Yaya samoto jiva atmano jivanaka aropi mante matam prakritam pachite. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product, and thus undergoes the reaction of materialism. It's all in the mind. I think I'm miserable. It's all in the mind. Here's another very important verse coming up. No, and this one that's coming up now is it was in this original glorification of the Lord. Anarto pasanam shaksha bhakti yoga mutsuje lokasya janataha vidpascha sankita. Material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the lengthy process of devotional service. The mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasdev compiled this Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in relation to the absolute truth. And now our famous one, 177. Yashambai Shriyamanam Krishne Parapurishe Bhakti Rupajite Sam Chokamohamaha. Simply by giving all reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, Supreme Lord, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fear. Sa samhitam paravatim vittam chatmajam shukamadya payapasha nivritti nivatam muni. The great sage Vyasadeva, after compiling Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, taught it to his own son, Sri Sukadeva Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. Shonika Uvacha, now back to the sages, asking another question. Savai nivritti nirartha savacho vishko muni kashyava bhutam vetam atmaram samabhusam. Sri Sonaka asked to Goswami. Sri Sukadeva Goswami was already on the path of self-realization, and thus he was pleased with his own self, means his soul. So why did he take the trouble to undergo the study of such a vast literature? Sutta Uvacha Atmaramas Chamunayo Vigranta Abhirupame Purvanchai Tikam Bhaktam Ekam Bhaktam Hare. Sutta Goswami said, in other words, those who take pleasure in self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though free from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed service unto the personality of Godhead. This is for those who know that they're not the body. They realize that they're not the body. But they want to serve Krishna. This means that Krishna possesses transcendental qualities, and therefore he can attract everyone, including liberated. It's not bhakti. It's just knowing that I'm not the body, but it's not bhakti. You had to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam from his father in order to get the bhakti. It's impersonal. I'm going to stop. Any other questions? Remember back in the, I think it was back in the 4th chapter, Narada told Vyasadeva that any literature, even if it's about self-realization, if it has no relation to devotional service, it's useless. Remember that? Any last question? Brian, do you have any? Just taking it in. Okay. Nobody else? Okay, 1, 2, 3.
I was wondering, so are you saying that after Narada
Yeah, he meditated on it, and then he dictated it to his scribe, who wrote it down. But it was the place of his residence. Now we can. Okay, we're going to end here. Or Premanandi, Shriyaste ki jai, Nardamani ki jai, Sukdeva Goswami ki jai, Vyaste ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Or Preman, sages of Vaishnav, Veda Vaishnava Krishna ki jai, Or Premanandi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Nitya Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitya Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Om Hari Bo.